Welcome to the Escaping the Accountant's Trap podcast. It's a podcast to help accountants, CPAs, and bookkeepers escape what we call the accountant's trap. It's where accountants are not getting paid for their value and are forced to work long hours with high demanding clients with little pay. Well, how do you escape the trap? One way is the topic of today's episode, and that's by crafting an amazing client experience. To help me with the discussion, I've invited Katie Tolin. She's an outsourced growth officer for CPA firms and is the chief growth guide of CPA Growth Guides, where she shows accounting firms how to achieve profitable growth. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Adam.
So I'm really curious, starting off, what is the chief growth guide of CPA Growth Guides?
And I think what it comes down to it is there's many different ways a CPA firm can grow. And so really just listening and, pulling in the right team and the right resources to help a firm hit those growth goals and probably even more importantly, defining what those goals are because a lot of times they don't know.
Interesting. Okay, so you said there's multiple ways to help that accounting firms can grow, of course. What are the top or the most common ways?
Well, I think to me, I think a smart strategy is to focus on specialization. So I do
Okay.
a lot with that. It's also, digital marketing. If you are not in digital today and you're not developing leads online, you're probably missing the boat there as well. And so digital is so broad; it encompasses so many different things.
Yeah.
But to me, those are two things that firms really need to be focusing on today.
Got it. Okay. Well, let's start with specialization. Um, the First of all, tell me what you mean by specialization.
Okay, so I think, falling into an accountant's trap is accountants try to be everything to everyone. They think like,
Mm,
oh, I need to service everyone because if I miss that one opportunity, that's going to make and break me. But in reality, if you develop a niche, a service line specialization, some sort of outsourced CFO kind of service, and you target it maybe to a specific buyer or a specific industry, and then you really get to know that group. You get to understand them, you know what they're doing, you get to be one of them. You actually get to grow. I think thinking smaller is what it enables accountants to get bigger, and I think that just goes against our natural thought process.
mm. Thinking smaller allows us to get bigger, which goes again. Like I agree, it goes against the natural thinking. But expand on that. Thinking smaller helps you get bigger.
So if you decide you just want to tackle, and I'm going to do, outsource accounting and CFO work for contractors, you
Okay.
then know where to go find the contractors. We have limited time to market. We have limited money to market. Instead of trying to cover the ocean of everything we can be, go focus on contractors. Go where they're hanging out. Talk to them. Show up at their events. Communicate with them directly, and you will become known in that contractor space as the go-to person for the service you
Mm,
provide, and then that really allows you to grow at higher levels than you putting your stake out that says I can serve anyone and everyone. Well, it might
mm.
not well, it might be true, it's not necessarily effective.
Yeah, that makes sense. So specialization could be what you're saying could be in the form of niching into a particular industry or vertical. Construction or dental practices, architecture firms, or restaurant. Could it also be niching into the type of service that you do? Like I'm only going to do bookkeeping, or I'm only going to do CFO work, or is there a world where you can do multiple services for the same industry? Or are you saying get really granular and say I'm only going to do CFO work for architecture firms in the Southeast?
I think it depends on your strategy. There's a couple different ways you can go. You can go that specialized. It says, I'm only offering this service to this buyer.
Yeah.
Minimally, I would say you could focus on a buyer group. So your contractors, a real estate broker, a manufacturer, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And then here are all the services that this buyer needs that I can offer. And then you create that suite of services. So it can be that. It can be, I'm going to offer a service. I'm going to do outsourced accounting. And with that outsourced accounting, maybe you can do like two industries and go, okay, well, if I'm going to do outsourced accounting, maybe it's two or three industries, professional services, nonprofits, and, whatever your third one is. But it's even when you pick a service, you still have to narrow down that buyer group, those verticals, to a smaller number than everyone under the sun.
Yeah. Okay. So specialization in terms of, like you said, niching down, uh, getting as granular as you want to or can so that you're speaking to a specific target audience. What are some of the roadblocks that you see accounting firms and bookkeeping firms run into when they try to specialize?
I think it's getting ingrained in the industry. It's hard work. You can't
Yeah.
just, say, "Hey, I'm going to focus on this type of buyer." You have to be seen as one of them. You've got to go to their conferences. You've got to read what they read. You've got to be writing for those
Yeah.
publications. You've got to be speaking at the events that they're going to. You've got to ingrain yourself. So, like all good marketing, it takes effort. And I think a lot of people say, I want to just say this is what it is, build it and they will come. When in reality, that's not the way it happens.
So are you saying that the firms that grow, that sort of break through that glass ceiling, they're ran by business owners or accounting firm owners, practice firm owners that are willing to go out and do those things? In other words, the firms that are being held back and are not growing, it's because the owner is not willing to do things other than accounting or bookkeeping.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, there are probably exceptions to that rule everywhere, but for the
Yeah.
most part, you've got to roll up your sleeves and do the work. And that work is, not only the service that you provide, but the work in growing your business.
Yeah. So, but what if somebody listening is like, I get it, I think, but I'm really good and really comfortable being the accountant, doing the work. What do they do?
Well, there's different ways you can go about and grow your business. You've got to figure it out. If you are incredibly comfortable walking into a room of 400 people and starting a conversation, then let's don't walk into a room of 400 people and start a conversation. Let's figure out what you are comfortable with. If you know your craft inside and out, maybe it's writing, and you're fine because you can sit behind your desk, you can get all your thoughts out on paper,
Mm,
and you can share your information that way. Maybe you're like, okay, I couldn't go to a large group, but if you put me in front of 20 people, I can have one heck of a conversation with them and educate them on what it is that they need to know. Or maybe I can be incredibly active on social. It's that personal interaction I don't love, but I can go out there and connect with people. There is something that's going to work for you. It's not going to be what works for everybody, and you're going to have to spend some time figuring out what it is that you're comfortable with and you can learn and actually work into your business operations.
yeah, and that makes sense. And so, I mean, just to flesh that out even further, how would somebody know what they're if they're starting from scratch? They've over the past, let's say, 8 years, they've built a tax practice, for example, and most of their clients are local, and they're just sort of burnt out. They don't necessarily want to go through another tax season. They want to grow their firm, and they want to be able to take some time off for themselves without having to doing all the work themselves, but they're sort of this catch 22 where they need money to hire more people, but they they need more clients to be able to afford the more people. So they're sort of stuck. What would you say their very first step is?
So usually what I do when I talk to firms is let's understand your strengths.
Okay.
Let's dive into your revenue. Let's segment it. Let's go, how much of what service do you provide to what buyer group? Let's figure out where you have natural strength because you do. And
Hmm.
then what do we do with that? If I sit there and say, guess what? You have a lot of expertise with dentists. Believe it or not, when I looked at everything that you do, talk to me about dentists. What do we know about dentists?
Yeah.
And so it's really, understanding where your strengths are. There are very few people that can go in a totally new direction. I was on a call with somebody just yesterday, and there's a need from influencers and out there that need certain things. They need specialized accounting help, and they need bill pay and insurance and credit and all of this other stuff. Well, it's probably not every accountant that would be comfortable talking to an influencer.
Hmm.
It's probably a smaller group of people that would be comfortable doing that, but it could be a great niche for them. But who are you comfortable? Who do you like to relate to? Who do you like to talk to? More importantly, who's in your network? If we downloaded your LinkedIn contacts, your Outlook contacts, and put them in buckets, where do they fall? If you really want to focus on the healthcare arena, but yet you don't have any dentists and doctors in your contacts, it might be a little bit harder.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So in terms of this sort of umbrella topic that we're talking about, having an amazing client experience, I'm assuming that if you and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think what you're saying is to specialize, to niche into a specific specialty. You're now focused on doing one set of things for one set of people, which means you can give them a great client experience, an amazing client experience, so that hopefully they'll tell other people and word of mouth will grow your firm.
Yes, that is true. And, even better is you can charge a higher price.
Mm,
And so, don't we all want that where you create your expertise that you can actually get a premium for what it is that you do?
yeah. So, yeah, I've heard the term, the phrase, "the riches are in the niches," and this is definitely the case in this. Uh, with what you're talking about. So, let's talk more a little bit about the client experience. In what ways, what have you seen that accounting firms are doing well that help them have an amazing client experience? And then also, what are some things that you're seeing that accounting firms need to improve on in order to improve the client experience?
So I think you're seeing more and more people understand that the client experience is important. And so to me,
Hmm.
that's a huge step in the right direction. Everyone has a perception of your business, whether that's intentional or not. So why not be intentional about it? And so
Okay.
your client experience is really how you do that. Um, and I think you're seeing firms utilize that from where are they doing it well from an onboarding. Well, here's my onboarding process for a new client. And so they got really well. Like I'm going to introduce them to the team and connect them to our portal and teach them about this and all these other things that they need to become a client. And your process should be different than every other firm's process. It's really hard to sell yourself today by saying, I'm a better accountant. I'm a smarter accountant. How do you prove that? Like, are you kidding me? There's no way to say that I'm better than somebody else, but I'm different. And my process is how I'm different. And you're engaging me because my process is different. So I love that accountants are starting to understand that, and they're starting to implement it. However, where do they need to improve? Is all of those aspects that where we touch a client. I was on the phone with a firm and they were explaining to me that the handoff between the outsourced accounting and the tax could be better. Like, why are we waiting to the last minute to do our tax return clients for the people that we do the outsourced accounting for when we had their books wrapped up in January?
Mm,
That's part of the client experience. Diving into that part of the process and understanding, what it is that we can do to tighten that up. I actually did a survey earlier this year on social media as well about succession planning and are we involving clients in our succession. If you're a multi-partner firm and you have somebody who's leaving, what do we do? How do we involve the clients in that? Who do they talk to? What do they do? Or are we just going to tell them what to do? Because
yeah.
honestly, clients want to say.
Interesting. Okay. You mentioned the word intentional. And I like that word because here at the CFO Project, that's actually one of our core values is being intentional with everything that we do. What do you mean by that?
So intentional is, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to map out my onboarding process. I'm going
Yeah.
to map out a process for when my client has to re-engage on an annual basis, or I'm going to develop a process for when one department passes something off to the other. And this is a defined process. This is going to be written out. This is going to take into consideration the voice of the customer. And when I say that, that's two people. That's your external buyer, who we traditionally think of when and our customer and our client, but also internally. Those people that touch something before or after in a process and making sure we're giving them what they need. So being intentional about this is spelling stuff out that's taking into the consideration of the people whose opinions matter most in the
Yeah.
situation, and spelling that out and making it repeatable. It's not something you just do once. Oh, that was great. It's got to be the same experience. When you go to a McDonald's, you can walk in. The store setup might be a little bit different, but it still feels the same. You
Yeah.
order something, the process is the same. It needs to happen at that level within accounting firms as well.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, and that's what we mean by the core value that we have behind intentionality is almost putting yourself in the shoes of your customer or a client or employee or whatnot, and seeing how they experience something and being
Mhm.
intentional about crafting an experience that is positive for them.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, and I tell accountants this regularly, is your opinion's interesting, but it's irrelevant because you're not your buyer.
Mm,
You have a say in it, but you're not the one who's writing you the check. You got
yeah,
to talk to the people who are.
yeah, it makes sense. Let me ask you this. We're talking about client experience and specializing and intentionality. Where do you see the accounting profession going in, let's say, the next 5 years?
Well, we know since 2020 we have skyrocketed in terms of what we've been able to accomplish and how we do it, and I don't think that path is going to change. I think we're going to use automation and technology to do grunt work. I think we've got to train our people, maybe ourselves in some cases, how to be that advisor level. The one thing the machines are not going to get on us anytime soon is that added value we provide as a human, that
Right.
insight and that input. And so we need to figure out how we're going to capitalize upon that. So in 5 years, that's what we're getting paid for.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going with that question because, when it comes to having an amazing client experience, the one thing that AI cannot replace and the one thing that technology cannot replace or software is that human to human element, that experience. People don't really care what you say, they really care about how you make them feel.
Mhm.
And if you, as an accounting firm owner, can make your clients feel special or make your employees and vendors, anybody that you work with, feel special, then that in itself will help you have a great experience.
I mean, think about it. I could call you and say, "Hey, Adam, I'm waiting for that document I need to complete your tax return." That's
Right.
one interaction we could have. Another
Yeah.
interaction is, "Hey, Adam, I noticed your revenues were down a little bit this last quarter. Let's talk about what's going on in your business, and see if there's anything I can help you with." That's a totally different conversation. And what do our clients value? Not you calling them to ask for a form. They value you trying to make a difference in their business.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, that's a lot of what we teach in the CFO project is, your clients don't value the fact that you record the past as much as they value that you're going to help them have a better future.
Yeah, and I
And
think I think accountants find that scary, because
yeah,
it's not a role that they've been in. It's not their comfort zone. And when you
right.
say, you've got to figure out how to do this, you know, um, the good thing is accountants deal with so many different businesses that they don't have the insights of just the one relationship. They have the insights of many that they
Right.
can bring into the conversation. And so I think we sell ourselves short sometime, and accountants actually do have that skill set. They just need to be able to tap into it and utilize it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. Well, Katie, we're almost running out of time. Let me ask you, if somebody is interested in getting your help in terms of figuring out what is my strategy to grow my firm, where should they go?
Well, I think you can go to my website, cpagrowthguides.com. I'm also all over social. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter/X. You can find me. So I'm out there. So go out and feel free to reach out in whatever way you feel best. And if it's email, it's katie@cpagrowthguides.com.
All right, perfect. We'll put all of those in our show notes, the cpagrowthguides.com and your email address and the LinkedIn profile. We'll put that in the show notes. Katie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Adam.
And to everyone listening or watching, thank you so much for spending the last few minutes with us as we discussed how to escape the accountant's trap. Bye for now.